Okay, maybe I'll just share. So hello, welcome to the talk on my Lawudo pilgrimage. And so we've got Terry, Beth, Ella. Hi, Beth. I don't know if I've met Terry and Ella. There's a bit of back. Hi. Hi, Terry. Okay. Nice to see your face. Can see everybody for a minute, so I know who I'm talking to. Hi. Hi, both of you. Hi. And then Ella. Hi, Ella. Hi. Just putting a face to a name is helpful. And Tenzin Palyang, welcome. Anyways, this slideshow came because it came after the idea came, actually because Lotion of Compassion asked me to give a talk about my trip to Lawudo. And of course, there's going to be quite a few opportunities coming up for those of you who might like to go to Lawudo. Beth, have you ever been to Lawudo? No? Anyway, it's an incredible opportunity. You know, this is the place where Rinpoche was meditating in his past life, as we're going to see as we go through the pilgrimage. So I'm going to start sharing the screen. I have a slideshow of different pictures that were mainly taken by not myself, but some friends, Venerable Sarah, Venerable Tenzin Michael, and another friend, Steve Nadeau. We were all up there at the same time together, and they took many, many pictures, so they allowed me to access the pictures. So it's going to be a sort of discussion through a series of pictures. So let me just, sorry, I'm a little bit slow with tech sometimes, so get this a little bit larger for you. There we go. Hi, welcome. So this is, you know, this comes from what I wanted to do here is not so much speak about Lama Zopa Rinpoche, but more about the place of Lawudo where Rinpoche was meditating, a great meditator, a great yogi in his past life, known as the Lawudo Lama. You know, this is Rinpoche's heritage, you know, of where he came from. And so, you know, that's where after attending a course last year when Rinpoche manifested passing away, welcome. We just started. Just a couple of people entered the Gompa. So where Rinpoche meditated in his past life at this place called Lawudo. So I wanted to take you through that, a little bit of his past life, and also what it means to go up to Lawudo. What does it involve? You know, like the kind of pathway up there and the kind of different things that you can see there when you walk up to Lawudo, when you do the pilgrimage up, and also when you get to the retreat center. So I'm just going to walk you through it through a series of pictures. So starting with Rinpoche, so this is Lama Zopa Rinpoche. I'm just explaining it. Most of us know, of course, Kyabje Lama Zopa Rinpoche. He's the director at FPMT. He directed the organization for 40 years after the passing of Lama Yeshe. Excuse me, and then he manifested passing away last April. So we're coming up to the first anniversary of Rinpoche's passing. And of course, there are actually a couple of pilgrimages organised to go up to Lawudo this April as well after the Heart Sutra retreat at Kopan. So there's always opportunities to go here. So anyway, because so Rinpoche's previous life, Rinpoche himself was born in 1946 up in an area very close to Lawudo. Lawudo is a small hermitage up in the Himalayas. And this here is a picture, as it says here, the Lawudo Lama. So it's a statue that you see in the cave. There's no images of the previous Lawudo Lama, no pictures, because he lived in the 19th century, early 20th century. So this is all we kind of have. There's a few other relics we have of the Lawudo Lama, but this one, as we go through the images, you'll see a picture of the cave. So this is the place where this is, we can see this statue actually is in the cave at the moment up in Lawudo. So I just wanted to start with a sort of brief, introduction to who the Lawudo Lama was. For those of you, there is a book, which you'll see later in the images. There's a book that was dedicated to the life story of the Lawudo Lama that was written by Jamyang Longmo. And so you can read all about the history of the place that the Lawudo Lama came from. It's a place called Sulukhumbu up in the Himalayas. And also Rinpoche was reborn in that area in this lifetime as well. So in a nutshell, the Lawudo Lama, Rinpoche's previous life, he was actually a lay. Do you know much about the history, Nancy? A little bit, yeah. So Rinpoche in his past life, he was a lay practitioner called a Nagpa, a tantric practitioner. And he actually had two children, a wife, and he was a trader who went back and forth from Nepal over the Tibet border and traded salt. And it was a very, very rigorous journey. And he carried that out at least 13 to 15 times a year, going back and forward over these really, really steep, dangerous mountain passes and thick snow, carrying heavy loads, to trade back and forward. So that's how he supported his family through trading salt. And during that time as well, of course, he was an avid Dharma practitioner. He was already known as the Lawudo Lama, someone with some quality and realization. But, because he was a family man, he had to support his family for many years. So over some, many years, he lived in a place called Tami, which is actually the place, it's very close to Lawudo, and Tami is the place where he lived for many years in his previous life, and actually where Lama Zopa Rinpoche was reborn in this life. He was reborn in Tami. So there's all these connections. It all happened in this small area in Sulukhumbu. So anyway, around about his mid-50s, the Lawudo Lama had received many, many teachings. He did an extensive pilgrimage across India and Nepal. Again, at that time, it's like everything's walking, everything's carrying your food. So it took about 18 months for him to go to Bodh Gaya and go to different holy places in India because he was preparing to do long retreat. Something's burring. So anyway, he did this extensive pilgrimage, and then after that decided his children were old enough now, and I think they felt comfortable enough that he could, he wanted to do extensive retreat. He'd received a lot of teachings from these great holy beings in the area, and decided that he had a lot of retreat commitments, and he wanted to devote the rest of his life to retreat. So he was already in his 50s, and so at this time again he lived in Tami, but he couldn't find a place. He didn't want to do it in the family home. So he eventually found this little cave called the Lawudo Cave. Lawudo means like radish or rock. Has a couple of different meanings. It stems from that. The meaning of those two words kind of raudo, which means like radish. And so he found this little cave. And again, we'll see more images of this as we go through. He found this cave and decided that, it was actually, he could find the cave, the name of the cave in these texts, because in this life, Rinpoche wasn't a Geluk practitioner, he was a Nyingma practitioner. And so through the text, the Guru, he found that Guru Rinpoche had prophesied this cave and actually had been to it and blessed this area. So, and the cave was all completely closed off, and he found the cave and he kind of dug out the cave. And I mean, it was very, very small, as you're going to see in the pictures. And anyway, through some difficulty and hardship, he decided this was the place. He felt like this was blessed and this was given to him by Guru Rinpoche. So he, within about 6 months of starting the retreat, he developed some condition with his knees and his feet, and he could no longer walk. So he asked his daughter came up to help him to do his retreat, to cook for him, to take care of him, because he wasn't able to move his cushion, literally, so he needed an attendant, and his daughter had already become ordained as a nun, so she took care of him for the rest of his life while he was in retreat. So the main thing that's kind of significant about that is the Lawudo Lama basically spent like 25, 30 years, his second part of his life, just doing retreat, extensive practice. And at the end of his life, there's more details to the story, but, just to keep it short, at the end of his life, his neighbour, now Cheryl Lama, some of you might have met Cheryl Lama, the incarnation. So the previous Cheryl Lama was his neighbour within about 20 minutes walk of there, where the cave is. And just before this Lawudo Lama was passing away in his 80s, he had had a sort of tea or whatever they do with the Cheryl Lama, you know, they had a visit. And he said to the this Cheryl Lama that he had already kind of incarnated a Yangtze. So before he passed away, he had already sent out a reincarnation of a previous being. So Lama Zopa Rinpoche was already born before the previous Lama passed away, Lawudo Lama passed away. So by the time the Lawudo Lama passed away, I think Rinpoche was around 4 years old. This is what holy beings can do. They can manifest bodies at any time. So I'm not sure if some of you joining, Beth, did you know that about Rinpoche? Just curious if some of the older students knew.
I did not know that a particular one. No, that's really cool.
Yeah. So we don't know what Rinpoche's going to do this life. In the previous life, Rinpoche, and he told the Cheryl Lama, you know, he'd already, so that little boy was born in Tami, which was the place where the Lawudo Lama lived for most of his life. And Lawudo is about a 2-hour walk from Tami. So that was one part. The other thing was towards the end, maybe about the last 8 to 10 years, because during the Lawudo Lama's retreat life, there was a period about 12 years when he never went anywhere. He literally never went out. Even though he was a Lama for the area, was requested always to do pujas and practices, he just decided, I'm dedicating my life to spiritual practice. So he didn't even go do even spiritual things, you know, what we would call spiritual. He just decided he was going to be in the cave. And he was known for doing extensive motivations, extensive dedications, you know, like, does that sound familiar? So he's known for that. He's known for being extremely good-hearted. And even during those times, you know, when there wasn't a lot of, you know, obviously food was very minimal. It was like potatoes, you know, and then sometimes meat, and radish was the other big one, because the name of the cave came from the word radish. You know, they used to store radishes in the cave at one point before Rinpoche found it. So the food was very minimal, but even then, the Lawudo Lama, if he did eat meat, he would only eat it if he knew that the animal had died in natural causes. He was very, you know, very careful about that. So that's, you know, there's certain things he was known for was that, his great care of animals, his extensive dedications and motivations. And also around about, I think maybe around 10 years before he passed, he had this heart disciple that he met that came up to the cave, and they developed a strong connection. Nawan Chopel. So he spent something around the last 10 to 12 years meditating extensively with the Lawudo Lama. Now that's not, it was like with Rinpoche. You know, if you're around Rinpoche a lot, it's hard going, you know. There's no time to rest. So I think the Lawudo Lama was the same. I mean, he went beyond the need to sleep, as Lama Zopa Rinpoche did. And I mean, can you imagine that cave is freezing and you're spending hours and hours just for many years, you couldn't move, you know? So there's no question you have to have some sort of inner quality to be able to sit and do that. And the cave is much more luxurious now than it would have been at that time. So I can't imagine, you know, when I'm in there, I already get cold, you know, I can't imagine in the middle of the winter time. So of course they did light fires and things, but still it's it's very rigorous. And the other thing that you can see when you go up there, and again we'll see pictures as we go through, is that the Lawudo Lama at some certain point he used to meditate outside. They would dig these little earth tunnels or holes and meditate through the night. He and his disciple would meditate outside in the elements, not just the elements with the wild animals, whoever, but that was one of the practices, you know, as you're kind of going through these practices of Dzogchen and the higher practices, that you actually have to sit outside and meditate in the elements. So that's kind of some of the practices engaged in, as well as finishing all the kind of retreats and commitments that you'd receive from various esteemed teachers and lamas. So he carried on like that. I think the only time he did come out of retreat was when a good friend asked him to come and do some prayers because he was nearing the end of his life. He had some severe life obstacles. So again, that Lama, that close Lama who had asked for only the Lawudo Lama to come and pray for him, in order for the Lawudo Lama to do that. And by this time, I think after about 15 to 20 years of the Lawudo Lama being in retreat, his legs healed. Because as Rinpoche says at that time, Rinpoche said himself, you know, at that time when there's something wrong, you just leave it as it is. It's not like you get a doctor, you get, it's like your legs go, your this go. Of course, you do prayers, there's certain basic medicines, but if it doesn't work, you just have to let it go, you know. So Rinpoche's legs and, you know, the ability to use his legs and feet were, you know, you had that illness for some years, but it actually purified, something shifted through the power of practice and it healed. So by the end of his life, the Lawudo Lama was able to walk and everything again. So there was a time, I think around about 10 years before he passed, this friend who was a Lama had asked him to cross over, again, very rigorous path to go over and do prayers for him. And that was the first time after about 12, 13 years, he actually came out of retreat after having not left Lawudo all that time, simply because this close friend really just said, I need this, you know, Lawudo Lama only to come. So again, basically he just continued on with retreat. And then around about his early 80s, he was still, his close student was still, they were still meditating and practicing together. And his close student, Naman Chopel, was offering dinner. They had offered soup for him one night. And the Lawudo Lama was asking him about, are there some signs in the sky? There was some sign, like there was a kind of eclipse or colours around the moon. There was also some sounded burring or like an earthquake that were coming in, that there's certain signs in the environment that were happening. And the Lawudo Lama was asking Naman Chopel to explain them. So, and then he offered this bowl of soup to the Lawudo Lama, and the Lawudo Lama said, well, I don't, you know, I've gone beyond the need for food, but in order that you have everything you need for your Dharma practice, I'll partake of the food. I'll dedicate it for that. And then they discussed a little bit, and then the Lawudo Lama and Naman Chopel had no idea what was going on. It's a bit like how Rinpoche manifested passing away extremely suddenly. Nobody had any idea that was happening, and the Lawudo Lama was in fine health. There wasn't any, majorly wrong. They didn't think he was near the end of his life. But with complete control, he had this last discussion with his disciple. He asked his disciple not to let his daughter in the cave. And he had his final few words with his heart disciple, and then he expressed 3 times, lay down in the lying posture position, and passed away, just like that. And Naman Chopel was in complete shock. He had no idea that was going to happen. And he sat with him for a few hours in the cave, because that's what the Lawudo Lama had said, not to let the daughter in for some time. And then he came out and let the rest of the family know that he had passed away like that. So again, it was complete control from the Lawudo Lama's side, but he passed away around his early 80s. But he'd already told the Sherog Lama, that he'd sent out another incarnation. And he also said to Naman Chopel before he passed, he said, I didn't do, extensive benefit for sentient beings this life, but I made many dedications to benefit next life. So it's kind of like, wow, I was just like, when I read the Lawudo Lama, I was just like, well, it's so, in many ways, it's very inspiring, you dedicate all that time, and then look, Lama Zopa Rinpoche's life was just like unbelievable, So that's just in a nutshell, but I really encourage, if you have time, to read the Lawudo Lama biography. It's incredibly inspiring, just to give the first part of the book is it's kind of difficult to understand if you haven't been there, because there's so many terms, there's so many regions and areas, and it's all in kind of Nepali, Tibetan terms, and I couldn't wrap my head around it until I'd been to the area. But once you go to the area, it's like, oh, this is Tammy, this is here, this is there, so you you get more out of the first part of the book. But the middle part and the end part is all about the Lawudo Lama, and then Lama Zopa Rinpoche's some part of Lama Zopa Rinpoche's, the early part of Rinpoche's life, this life. So I'd really, if you have a chance to read, it's very, very inspiring. So is that okay so far? Any questions? We're okay?
Wonderful.
Beth?
Oh, I was just going to say wonderful.
Yeah. No, it is. Rinpoche's life was wonderful, yeah. And that's just a small previous life as well, yeah. So, and of course, when you go up there, there's, well, we'll see there's certain things that help you to connect a little bit more with the Lawudo Lama as well. You know, there's some relics, the stupa, different things that you really start to feel this connection with the Lawudo Lama, and of course, being in the cave. So, of course, the Lawudo Lama passed away in 1946 or 7. And Lama Zopa Rinpoche, it would have been 1947, because Lama Zopa Rinpoche was born. I mean, again, the dates are always a little bit unclear because they don't record them as we do. But Rinpoche, they generally got the idea, because we used to celebrate Rinpoche's birthday on December 3, 1946. So Rinpoche was born late 1946, and he was born to an extremely poor family in the area of Tami. So again, Tami was the place where Rinpoche's Lawudo Lama spent the majority of his life, and then moved to Lawudo the last 30 years of his life to meditate and do retreat. So when you go on a pilgrimage, of course, you can visit both these areas because they're right, like next door. In Himalayan terms, they're like right next door to each other, you know, which is a 2-hour walk, which is really nothing, you know, for the locals. So Rinpoche was born there, and he, extremely poor family. This is the first picture. I think this is about the earliest picture I could find of Rinpoche. I think he must be around 3 or 4 here. And you can see from the picture, there's not much there. Rinpoche doesn't have, you know, it's very poor clothes. They have one set of clothes. They never take them off. And they just wear them till they're literally falling off the body, you know. And of course, they didn't bathe much in those times or anything either, you know. So this is about the first image we can see. Rinpoche was born in Tami, and he already had a sister who actually still lives in Lawudo. She's the keeper of Lawudo. She's the older sister. He has a younger brother who's still alive, and Rinpoche was the middle son. And there was also two others, one other actually daughter who passed away. So 2 years after Rinpoche was born, when Rinpoche was born, there was actually also special signs on the top of the house. There was these 2 blackbirds that appeared on the top of the house as his mother was giving birth, and that's usually as protectors. So a sign that, you know, there was some special being born. So Rinpoche was born, and then sometime quite soon after, like as soon as he could talk, actually before he could talk, they had 2 houses there, Tami, and there was another one that was closer to Lawudo where Rinpoche moved. The little boy used to try and literally try and crawl back up to Lawudo. Even before he could talk, his mother had to go and find him. And when you're walking from Lawudo to Tami, you can see the bamboo. There's these old growth of bamboo where he used to walk up, kind of crawl up to there and then kind of fall asleep, and his mother would come and find him because he was trying to get back home. At that age, the imprints on the mind are so strong, you know, the previous life. So he was just identifying very much at that time with being the Lawudo Lama. And then as soon as he could speak, he was expressing that he was the Lawudo Lama, and he was trying to go back to Lawudo. That was my home. So that was as soon as he could, you know, verbalize anything, he was expressing to his mother and his family, you know, I'm the Lawudo Lama, I need to go back up there. And he was running up the hill, and the mother, poor mother, she had to work so hard anyway. Then she had to go and find her son at all hours because he kept running away, you know, back to his cave. So, or crawling away at that time. So anyway, yeah, he was expressing that, you know, for some time, and then they checked with some local lamas, and there was a few divinations done, and eventually they checked with Chulsha Rinpoche, was the sort of main lama guru for the area for Sulukhumbu, and he confirmed that he was indeed the incarnation of the Lawudo Lama. But then, unfortunately, the family who owned the cave, they were still there at that time. There was the daughter and some grandchildren. It was their home, you know. They weren't ready to give up the cave and all their possessions back to the Lawudo Lama. So they kind of decided not to sort of in their own way acknowledge who he was. So it was left to Rinpoche's mother of that life, you know, to take care of him, to find a way for him to get his education. So of course, she also had the problem that Rinpoche's father passed away when he was 2. So she was the sole caregiver. She was responsible financially for the family, which in those days was incredibly difficult. She had 3-4 children at that time. She had to work. She had to go and work in the fields. She had to carry heavy loads. She had to do anything to make money to support the children. So, and then, you know, Rinpoche would talk about, my mother would be away all day and we'd be sitting there cold with no fire. They were all too young to make a fire, to cook for themselves. And she would come back late at night when it was dark after working in the fields all day, carrying heavy loads, and then have to make a fire, cook for them. So it was just unbelievable hardship, you know, in Rinpoche's early years. But the mother felt also this pressure that she had this tulku, and she knew that she had to find him a way to get educated, taken care of. So they had an uncle who was a monk in the Tami Gompa. So again, if we go to Tami, there's also a Gompa, an ancient temple in that area, about 350 years old. They had to, the uncle decided that he would be the caregiver for Rinpoche at that time. And so he was sent up to Tami, but because he was so young, he was only like 4 years old, he was missing his mother. So he would try and run down the hill. Is this exciting, Nancy? He would run down the hill during the day, and the mother would have to take him back up, and she's busy with other children. So anyway, it was a very difficult situation. So it didn't work for him to be in Tami. So the mother then found another uncle who took Rinpoche to Roling. And I think this is a picture of Rinpoche in Roling. It's another area that's a 2 to 3 day intensive walk from where his mother lived to another monastery, which is a Guru Rinpoche place, again in the Sulukhumbu Valley. So this is, I think there was a Westerner who came through Roling in those early years and took some pictures. So there's a couple of pictures on this slideshow that you can see of Rinpoche in the early years, because this Westerner had travelled through there and took some pictures of them at that time. So anyway, Rinpoche spent some time there, and he was about 8 years in Roling, just basically reciting text, learning how the alphabet, reciting text, learning how to memorise. And his uncle was extremely tough. He would beat him a lot of the time if he wasn't memorising or looking at the texts. And so he had a very tough childhood. So I'm going to go on to the next slide, because that's Roling. So Rinpoche spent, around about 8 years in Roling, and then the uncles decided to go to Tibet around the age of, Rinpoche would have been about 10 there, so he was still quite young, because that was a long trip, but he was old enough to walk, and you know, sometimes I think his uncles still carried him. So he went to Tibet around about the age of 10, 11 years old, and because his uncles wanted to do pilgrimage in Tibet. So this was like the 50, 56, 57 time, just before the major Chinese invasion of Tibet. So in a nutshell, his uncles took him there, and they decided to go deeper into Tibet because they wanted to go into Lhasa. But Rinpoche was they felt Rinpoche was a bit too young. So they left Rinpoche on the border of Tibet at a monastery there, Domo Geshe Rinpoche's monastery. And during that time, Rinpoche met this other monk, Losang, again Losang. I think this is a picture again, Losang here. Rinpoche wasn't a monk yet when his uncles left. But by the time his uncles came back and he had met Gen Losang, he had decided that he wanted to stay in Tibet. Rinpoche, from his own side, didn't want to go back to Sulukhumbu because he knew that there was no education there for him. He was reciting texts, he was doing pujas, but there was no education beyond that there. So even at that young age, around 11, 12 years old, Rinpoche was like super clear, I want to stay in Tibet. This is where it's happening, you know. So even at the point his uncle's beating him and saying, you're coming back, whereas Rinpoche was like, no, I'm not, I'm staying here. So he had to get permission for the local magistrate to say he was old enough to get permission to make his own decision to stay there. And along with this monk, Ken Losang, he agreed to take care of him financially, be like his manager. Rinpoche was able to stay in Tibet and his uncles went home. Rinpoche stayed there for 2 years. And at that time he became a monk. He was able to study, you know, to some extent in the monastery. He was accepted into the monastery. And so he spent the first 2 years there, and he was there with, you know, again, Losang took care of him. Then the Chinese invasion came, and as Lama Yeshe said, they were all kindly asked to leave Tibet. So along with many others, Rinpoche escaped Tibet, and then they ended up in India, crossing the border. Some monks, thousands of, you know, at least hundreds of thousands went to Darjeeling in India. Rinpoche ended up in Bagsa, in deep in South India, where, oh no, we're not quite there yet. I don't have any pictures of Bagsa, sorry. He ended up deep in South India in this concentration camp or prison camp that was built by the British for, you know, like Gandhi, Nehru, people who made an uprising against the British people. So it was no longer a prison, but it was a place where they could keep refugees, you know, all the hundreds, thousands of refugees were coming in. So of course it was unbelievably poor water, poor food, poor sanitation. Some of the monks committed suicide. They couldn't handle it. It was so intense. And I mean, also they were deep in the jungle there, you know, it was extremely hot. They'd come from a really cold climate. The food was totally different. And, you know, they were just living in these sort of wooden shacks, and there was snakes that would fall in them in the middle of the night. And it was just like unbelievably scary. But nonetheless, these hardy monks just got on with it, you know, and made a monastery out of it and continued on with their studies throughout that. And along with Rinpoche, there was these incredible great lamas that came out of those conditions, you know. It was unbelievable. So it's like they transformed that hardship into, you know, realizations in the path, you know. So Rinpoche lived there on and off for 8 years. And then during that time, he met Lama Yeshe. They developed a really deep connection. And Rinpoche then, after a few years, started to live with Lama Yeshe, because after some time, Lama, I don't know if he built, or either there was some sort of smaller houses, or I don't know, huts, you could probably say, huts that were sort of built around the camp. And some of the lamas built their own sort of rooms because they had so many disciples that they needed some space just to teach. You know, they would just build like bamboo partitions on around the edge of the huge big houses. I mean, it was all very simple. Somehow Lama had a small hut that was kind of a little bit up the hill and a little bit separate. So Rinpoche went up there one day and eventually made this connection. You know, it's a long story, but if you read it in the book, he made a heart connection with Lama Yeshe. And from that time around, Rinpoche was probably around 15, 16. Lama Yeshe became his manager, basically took care of him, his manager and guru. And Rinpoche, he and Lama Lundrup all lived together. Lama Lundrup cooked for Rinpoche and Lama Yeshe in that place in Bagsa for some years. Then around 67, 68, they left Bagsa and went to Nepal together. And around the, sort of mid 66, 67, they ended up in Nepal and met their first Western disciple, Zina Rikchowski, I think that's how you say it, an ex-Russian princess. And of course, so she was really the first Western student of Rinpoche and Lama. And she requested teachings from them. And from there, you know, gradually, Rinpoche and Lama started to teach. The first November course was around 67, 68 with 20 people. When they eventually, you know, they were living in Boda, a monastery there. And Lama would see this house on the top of this hill from Boda. You can see Kopan, you know, the hill where Kopan monastery was built. So at that time, it was just a hill. It just had one small house on it. And Lama, you know, he spotted that and thought that's going to be a great place for a monastery, a place for us to, because also Rinpoche had been asked in his previous life to build a monastery. But he had said to the locals he was too old to do that this life, but he would do in his future life, you know. So there was a vision to build a monastery anyway. It was initially up in the Himalayas, but it moved down to Kathmandu. So anyway, Rinpoche came down, you know, they saw this hill, and eventually they were able, through the help of Zina and other Westerners, to buy that land. And gradually they built and developed Kopan Monastery. The first retreat was with grass, like there was nothing really. It was just like they just all slept on like straw or hay. There was, you know, the first November course was like 20 people, and there was pretty much nothing there apart from tents, I think. So that started around 67, and gradually, you know, they built up Kopan Monastery. This is actually a picture here that I found of, so around that time as well, when Rinpoche came back to Nepal with Lama, at that time also the Lawudo family had actually left the hermitage, the cave, by that time. The last grandson had left and had decided to offer the property then to Rinpoche. because they didn't want or need it anymore, basically. So when Rinpoche was in Bodha, the grandson came from the previous Lawudo Lama and officially sort of offered the Lawudo cave and the place to Rinpoche. And I don't know if this is the first time, but this is one of the first times here that Rinpoche and Lama went up to Lawudo. So Rinpoche could officially, from the locals as well, be received as the Lawudo Lama, the incarnation, because he hadn't really been officially accepted in the previously. So, and also receive, the cave and all the possessions of the previous Lawudo Lama. So this is, I was just trying to pick out a few pictures. So you can see here, when we go up to Lawudo, we've got like all these jackets and hats, isn't it, Romy? We're all like filled up. Rinpoche and Lama are just going up there with their Zen and like a thin, it's like, and you can see it's snowing here and everything, it's unbelievable. So yeah, this is a picture around the 70s of Rinpoche and Lama going up probably for the first or maybe the second time up to Lawudo to receive the cave back. Let me just see, I can't see there it is, yeah. So again, I'm just going to go through briefly now, because we know a lot of the history of Rinpoche and Lama, so they, this is really the start of them developing the FPMT, very importantly, and Rinpoche had health problems for many, many years. He was always very, very skinny. And Lama, we'd always kind of get divinations done and see what would be good for Rinpoche's health and because Rinpoche, I mean, everybody in Bagsa got TB, but Rinpoche was always especially skinny, even after Bagsa. And one of the things that came out in a divination by one Lama is when Rinpoche receives the Lawudo, his possessions back for his previous life, his health will improve. And that's actually what started to happen. So there was a whole karmic thing going on where Rinpoche not being properly acknowledged and then also receiving his, his heritage from his previous life. So once Rinpoche started to receive that, did start to improve in many ways, health-wise as well. So this is another lovely picture of Rinpoche and Lama again, somewhere up in the Himalayas, but we've got it in colour there, and you can see still, they were very, very poor at that time. There was no money. That was the big issue all the time. There wasn't a lot of money, and there was more and more Westerners coming, wanting to receive teachings, wanting to start community. So what they started, first of all, because Rinpoche had accepted in his previous life to build a monastery in the Himalayas in Sulukhumbu. They began Kopan in a sense. It was called Everest Monastery. I don't remember the name of it, but they started. The first monks actually were up in Lawudo, not in Kopan Monastery. They built a gompa, which Rinpoche built himself, or not with his own hands, but he managed it. It was the only thing I think Rinpoche actually oversaw the building. He actually oversaw the building of it in some way or another. Most of the time Rinpoche spent in the cave meditating, but he was supposed to be overseeing the workers. And so the gompa that stands in Lawudo today was built by Rinpoche, and that hosted the first lot of monks, mostly Himalayan monks. There was a couple of non-Himalayans. Geshe Losam Michael, is it? He lived up there for some years. But then they decided, and his sister was the main one again, taking care of the monks. She was up there taking care of them, and they had a Geshe teaching, but it became more and more difficult and more expensive to have the monks up there. So they moved everything to Kopan and gradually developed the monastery there. It made more sense. So Rinpoche did fulfill what he was asked to build a monastery, but it happened in Kopan and Kathmandu. This is another image of Rinpoche in the early 70s, again, meditating very much in the elements. And as we said, Rinpoche used to meditate in these small holes, these earth holes. And this is Rinpoche again, meditating in the middle of the elements, just like, so it's very, I guess more for us older, you sort of see this, all the kind of the familiarity from previous life to this life, of how Rinpoche was, doing the same things, manifesting the same activities and actions and light and qualities. So in a nutshell, that's kind of, where Rinpoche came from and how Kopan kind of started, like just starting for Rinpoche and Lama. the hardship in Bugsa, meeting each other there, all the hardship they went through, meeting the first Western disciple, and then gradually, you know, mostly on the behest or the request of Zena, you know, asking the Lamas to teach, you know, because that was, now we do that just by rote, but in those days, you know, you just come in brand new, you wouldn't have a clue where to start, you know. She knew there were special beings, but she kind of, somehow she initiated all this for us, you know, that Zena, you know. And of course, there was other few students that started to come around and they all initiated. And really, Venerable Roger, if you ever had an opportunity to listen, he gave some talks through the IMI and you can find them on YouTube. And they're really incredible. He talks about the early days and the amount of hardship they went through to just start to really develop the FKMT and the organisation. Living in cow sheds in Dharamsala, you know, snakes in the bed because there was no, you know, no cover. They all lived off with 1 rupee a day, which is nothing an Indian rupee. I mean, it was a lot more then, but still not much. So, you know, incredible hardships with early students for us to be able to enjoy the comforts in what we do now. So then just, you know, so for me personally, you know, and for quite a lot of us, after Rinpoche passed away, last year, there was a special Light of the Path retreat. So this is where it all kind of started for me, going to Lawudo again for the second time. I'd already been. But the retreat started with many of us. This is just, you know, an image of Kopan Monastery here, the garden. This is Rinpoche laughing. Sorry, the picture wasn't very high resolution, so it's a little bit not clear, but I just thought it was a beautiful picture of Rinpoche. This is what we call the Stupa garden in Kopan. So the retreat started last year. My pilgrimage started last year by going to Kopan Monastery and engaging in a retreat with another 200 students, the Light of the Path retreat, one that Rinpoche had led around 4 times, and there was going to be another one last year, but with Rinpoche manifesting passing away, we didn't have it with Rinpoche in his presence, so we did the retreat together, as Rinpoche would have hopefully wanted us to do, you know. So do I have a picture here? Next. Yeah, this is again another image of the Kopan. Have you been, Sean, to Kopan? No. Nancy, you've not been? So this is isn't it, the Kopan, the garden's just absolutely beautiful. Beth, you've been to Kopan?
No, dear, I have not.
Oh my gosh.
No.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Anyone else who's here? Breeze, you've been to Kopan, of course. Many years ago. Breeze? Anyway, Tenzin
Yes, I was
Palya,
at Kopan. I was at Kopan.
you've been
3
there,
times.
yeah.
Yeah.
When was the last time you were there, Tenzin Palyang?
Oh, it might be 10 years ago now.
Okay. So even since 10 years ago, it just gets developed all the time. It's just developing continually. Well, the main development at the moment is, this is called the Stupa Garden, and it's situated at the back of the monastery. And even behind these stupas, there's steps that go down, and there's a huge amount of buildings and accommodation for mostly Westerners when we go and do courses. So here you see this one, this stupa here, you can see my mouse here. This is Lama Lundrup's stupa that was dedicated to Lama when he passed away. The one at the back here is actually taller. You can't quite see that in the image, but it's taller than this one. And this was dedicated to Geshe Lama Konchok, who came to Kopan Monastery, again at the request of Lama Zopa Rinpoche in 1985, when Lama Yeshe passed away. Rinpoche knew that he had to go and travel extensively in the West, so he asked Geshe Lama Konchok to come and be there. Geshe Lama Konchok, interestingly enough, was very kind of similar, a little bit similar life story of the Lawudo Lama. He also spent 25 years meditating very austerely in the Himalayas, in Sum, a valley called Sum, in a cave, you know, very simply. And actually, hopefully, I was asking Geshe Tenzin Zopa, he was here recently, and I was asking Geshe, when is the life story, Geshe Lama Konchok, coming out, the biography, you know, because I've been looking forward to it. But it's on its way soon. They're just still gathering a few last pieces of information. But anyway, and Geshe Tenzin Zopa was the attendant. For those of you who have met him, he was the attendant of Geshe Lama Konchok. So Geshe Lama Konchok lived around 15 years at Kopan, and unbelievable. It was just like having this great enlightened yogi there all the time, you know. And Lama Lundrup was the abbot, who was also a great yogi and enlightened master. He was the abbot for around 35 years. And then over to the right here, where my cursor is, where that big tree is, I don't know if they're taking down the tree, but it's somewhere in that right corner. They're in the process of building a stupa, swift return stupa, or a commemoration stupa for Lama Zopa Rinpoche, which is going to be even more extensive. Yeah, it's like massive. It's like, can they really fit it in that space? It's kind of miraculous how they can fit these buildings in like, feels like tiny spaces. And then they fit this building that houses like 60 people. It's like, how did you fit that in there, you know? It's a bit like Dharamsala around His Holiness. It's all falling off the mountain, you know? It's like, feels like that with Kopan. Is it going to, this mountain going to collapse, you know, this hill? Because everyone's just so much building. But I mean, it's very, very nicely done, very beautifully done. So this is anyway, this is the back garden of Kopan. So what I want to do now is share, because I didn't have any really good pictures of Kopan. So since some of you haven't been here, what I'm just going to do is share the website of Kopan Monastery, because they have about 5 or 6 pictures that just give a sort of feeling of the whole place. So I'm going to stop sharing this. We're going to go into share screen for here. Where are we? No, here. Good. Share. No, that's not what I want to do. How do I make this smaller? I have about 3 or 4 Facebook things on this one share screen. And how do I get this screen? How do I get this a wee bit smaller? Because then I'll see the rest of the tabs if I can get this a bit smaller. How do I get this one? Or just escape, maybe, yeah?
Yeah,
escape
should do it.
More.
No.
Battery safe. Is this not, this should be plugged in. How comes?
There we go.
Okay, there we go. Good, perfect. Wait a minute. How did that not? Is that going to plug in now? Oh, because it's almost the power's going to go. Okay. Right, let me try. Sorry, we had a little bit.
Working now?
Does that say it? Doesn't say it's.
Oh, it's charging. Yeah, it's got its
Oh,
little chargy thing on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Oh, sorry. I'm going to mute that. And Kopan Monastery. So we can see here, just, you know, just on the website, really, you know, it's a great way just to get a view. This is the Kopan garden, the back garden, and in full bloom, again, that we saw before. Now, this is actually what it used to look like. You see this stupa here? This is a stupa, Bodha stupa, that you can still see from the Kopan Monastery from the hill. This is the view when you're standing from the monastery, but this is how it used to like. This is what we're saying. This is a vision from Lama Yeshe in 69, what it looked like in the past. Now that area is completely built up, but you can still see the Holy Stupa Bodha. This is the new Gompa, which is actually absolutely stunning. Well, it's been there maybe, you know, 10, 15 years, something like that. It's the main Gompa. This is again the stupa garden. This is the Geshe Lama Konchok, the larger stupa at the back that you can see. This is another view from this is the main Gompa here. And this is a view of another Kagyu monastery that's across the hill. But you can see there's a huge, beautiful view out there on the valley because it stands up above Kathmandu Valley. So, I mean, the location's just incredible. It's ideal, you know. This is another view of the monastery, and again, a view outside, out over onto the valley. These are monks, some of the monks getting their education. So Kopan has around, I don't know, around 400 monks. These are some of the 8 different types of stupas also that are there that were built in the earlier years. And this is inside the main temple. There's actually two main gompas there. This is the one that's predominantly used by the monks, and there's one called the Chenrezig Gompa that I don't have an image of here, but that's used during the November course and other courses that are held for Westerners. But you can see it's incredibly beautiful inside the main temple. And when you visit there as well, Westerners can also go in and join in some of the pujas and practices that the monks are performing. So yeah, just giving you a few images here of Kopan, what Kopan looks like. And hopefully some of you will have the opportunity to go if you haven't been, or maybe be able to go again in the future. So I want to go back to let's just move this. Okay, stop share. I'm going to go back to the slideshow now. We'll go back and forward a little bit between the slideshow and a few other Facebook shares that I want to do. So, current slide. So, Kopan, how are we doing? Do we need a break? It's 20 past 20. Oh, we're not too bad yet. We'll do another 10, 15 minutes if we want to take a break for a few minutes. It's a lot of information. So this is Rinpoche's room that's now hosts. Some of you might have seen these images already, of course, online, but this is Rinpoche's room, Kudung, where the holy body is. So inside here is actually where Rinpoche's body is, holy body is. And I have a better, stop share. I have a little bit better view of this from Facebook, just like a 1-minute video of, where is the video? Here it is here. This is just a nice, 30-second video, and it's more extensive here. That previous pictures, it's been more extensively decorated, but you get an idea. These are some monks performing prayers. The sound's not so important. It was just to give you an idea of the room that you would visit if you get to go and see, if you get there and you go to Kopan, you get to see Rinpoche's holy body. And you can go in and circumambulate. I mean, it's just incredible. It's very beautiful, and it's taken care of every day by one of Rinpoche's previous attendants. And each week, so the holy body, of course, as we all know, they're preserving the holy body with salt. And each week, the monks have to change over the salt. And I guess I would imagine most of you have salt for the holy body. Beth, do you have some? Briege? You already got some? Because I have some, if anybody needs. I brought some back. Do you have some, Nancy? Yeah. Tenzin Palyang, do you have some salt for the holy body?
No, but thank you. Thank you for the offer. I'll be in touch.
If you'd like some, I'm happy to send you some. So you can let me know, or let Romy know, and we can send you some if you're interested, if you'd like to have some.
Okay, thank you. Wow.
Beth, do you have some?
Sorry, trying to get to unmute. Yes, I do. Thank you.
You do? Okay,
Yeah,
great. So anyway, as you can see, this is like super beautiful, but it's very much Rinpoche's style as well. It's perfect because it's Rinpoche's style. So can I escape? There we go, escape. Stop that share. Just a little bit back and forward here. Share screen. Hi. Back to the PowerPoint. From current slide. Yeah, so this is, again, you can see even from this picture, it's been more elaborately decorated. I think this must have been taken in the very, I think this was during the 49 days, because you can see even outside the room, there's monks on the porch. There was so many people coming during the 49 days, and doing prayers and practices, but it's been more extensively decorated since then. So just to give you an idea, before we get to Lawudo, I just wanted to give you a brief synopsis of what would happen if you decided to go on pilgrimage to Nepal, because again, there's many pilgrimages being offered. Venerable Amy will do one next year. Venerable Sarah's, I think there was another, Venerable Rubina or someone else on her behalf usually offers pilgrimage. Venerable Sarah's leading one in April this year. So what would it kind of look like if you go on a pilgrimage like that? It would usually be about 2.5 weeks. Ideally, you have a good 3 weeks to go to Nepal. That's the minimum. But you'd usually start by visiting, first of all, there's 2 holy stupas, Bodha Stupa and Swayambhu. They're the main precious holy objects in Kathmandu. So you would visit them for sure. They have their all different benefits, and I'm not going to go into that now, but they're unbelievable precious holy objects that Rinpoche would spend extensive time around circumambulating and making offerings. So you would visit them. You would spend at least, I think, 1 or 2 days in Kathmandu going to Kopan Monastery. So what would you see? I mean, even going to Kopan itself is like unbelievable without going to Lawudo. You would visit Rinpoche's holy room and the holy body, and you can go in there. It's open every day for at least, I think 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon. So you can sit and do extensive prayers and practices in there. There's also Geshe Lama Konchok and Tenzin and Lama Lundrup's holy relic room, where there's extensive relics of both when they passed away. There's relics of their, that came from the ashes when they were cremated. And again, we've seen some of Geshe Lama Konchok's relics during the relic tour. They're unbelievable. So there's like the tongue and the heart that didn't burn. I think that Geshe Zopa was saying the tongue started to manifest a Tara, yeah? The image of a Tara. So, relics they have this life that carries on. Sometimes they multiply, sometimes they change in shape and form, start to manifest deities. So there's a whole room dedicated to these incredible relics of Geshe-la and Lama Lundrup. But also you can see what you saw before, the stupa garden. There's going to be soon three holy stupas there in the back garden. And of course, there's the 2 gompas that are filled with holy objects. And of course, there's always courses going on there, So Kopan itself is just a wealth, you can spend a whole day there just going around. And I mean, you can spend forever there, really, because it's just so many holy objects just at Kopan itself. So that's just a whole day or 2 in itself, just spending time at Kopan Gompa. Did I miss any with Kopan? I think that's the main things, yeah. Yeah, the nunnery there's also the nunnery, and somehow I didn't, we've got a picture at the nunnery at the end, but there's also the Kopan nunnery, which is unbelievable. And I'll show you a picture. We've got one picture of that comes more at the end of the slideshow. So, how do I get rid of this? How did that, you can go up there. Escape. How do I get, now it's not letting me move on to, I press escape. I think sometimes it gets stuck. More. What did you do with more when you went into more, Romy? Because usually I have the little arrows down there and it's not popping up. Oh no, here it is. Sorry, I just pressed you. Yeah, good. I haven't done it this. So anyway, so you would go to, spend 2 or 3 days at least, ideally more, in Kathmandu, going to Kopan, visiting the 2 stupas, and of course, many other places you can go to if you have more time. So this is, I went with 2 other friends this time, and this is where you'll land in Lukla. Romy's here now, and she landed there, and it's a bit of a trip to Lukla. It's only a half-hour flight, but it's one of the most dangerous airports to land in the world, just to make you feel better, just to give more inspiration to want to go. So you need to be doing your prayers and mantras on the flight. But I mean, of course, there's so many flights there every day in the season. So definitely the pilots are very skilled, they know what they're doing, and they generally only fly when weather's permitting. And you can see it's most dangerous because the runway just cuts into the edge of the mountain. It's literally, that's just I don't know how many 100,000 feet drop down that runway is. This is the end here. This is just cut in to the side of the mountain. And it just basically just lands like that. And there's a very short runway for them to be able to stop. So it's pretty scary. So you're just doing your mantras and I'm usually not watching, But I think if you're going in pilgrimage and holy places, you're all set, you're all protected, I'm sure. So you land in this place called Lukla. And then most people want to get out there as soon as possible. Ideally, you get a morning flight. I mean, Lukla's okay. It's all built up. There's much more. I mean, these days, there's quite nice, comfortable guest houses. You can get a coffee and German muffins and cakes and pastries. They've got all that stuff now, So there are, very comfortable guest houses there. But anyway, you usually land there in the morning. Most of the flights in the morning. So you can start taking off straight away, and it's basically a 3-day hike on average for most people to get up to Lawudo Hermitage Cave Retreat Centre. So the first day you go about halfway, and there's a couple of different posts you can stop at, places. You know, there's two main, you stop about halfway, and it depends on who's your guide. So usually you would have a porter, somebody carrying, unless you're really enthusiastic. But most of us will take a porter and carry your stuff, and they also become your guide. And that works because they become your guide, but you don't have to pay for a guide as well. You just pay for a porter. Because then if you had a guide, it would be more money on top of that. So generally you'll have a porter to carry your things, and you just carry your small backpack. And then the whole the whole walk up is just like a series of different holy objects. You know, wherever you go, there's these beautiful carved stones made into a sort of small stupa. Sometimes they line the pathway. You know, here you can see these small. So here's another stupa. It just gives you an idea. It's just like non-stop holy objects because the people in that area, I mean, it's their religion, it's their culture, it's it's been preserved for hundreds of years. You know, so the place is just steeped with the blessings of the Dharma. And not just the holy objects. I mean, there's been caves that unfortunately a lot of them aren't inhabited anymore. But, you know, even just 100 years ago, there was all these great beings just dotted around the hills, just doing retreat and meditation, you know. So it's blessed with all the realizations and practice of these great holy saints and yogis that have been there over the centuries. And kind of sustained by all these holy objects, you know, that are always constantly being built, especially carved stones and stupas. When the family members pass away, they build, the family, you know, dedicates a stupa or a chorten to their family members. That's what they do. Here we dedicate chairs, benches. You know, it's just what we do. But there they dedicate holy objects, you know. So it's a similar idea, but that's kind of what culturally and religiously what they do. I don't know, it says the battery is running low. Why is it not charging? Maybe it's not plugged in. Sorry, I'm just having a little battery issue here right now. I don't want it to. Maybe it's just not plugged in. It should be plugged in. Maybe it's something to do with my. Okay. I thought it wasn't plugged in. Let's give me 2 minutes. This is not going to be good if the battery runs out. Okay, let's just take, shall we do it? We'll take a 5-minute break, and I will hopefully get the battery situation sorted. So we'll be back in 5 minutes. Thank you. Where is my escape that? Yeah. So I can get in. Is there something wrong with my port? I hope there's nothing wrong with my computer. Otherwise, it's my computer, you know. Because it was working before. Oh yeah, there we go. It is now.
Now we're charging. All right.
Something was.
Happy days.
Yeah. Okay.
Happy days.
Anyway, we'll take a 5-minute break. Anyway, we're all plugged in, but we'll see. We'll do 5 minutes. What time is that? Yeah, because it's a lot of information. It's okay. We should get all the pictures. Yeah. No, I was very, very fortunate. Romy came as well. She got so far.
I think it. But I got to about 3 hours. Everybody backed up the mountain. 3-day walk.
It's a 3-day walk. It takes about 5 hours each day. You're constantly going up because it's about another, what, 2,000 meters or something you have to get, yeah. No, not 2,000, maybe. What's the 3,002? I always get the feet and meters mixed up. Okay, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so it's about 2,500 meters, yeah. You have to make in 3 days. You can take longer. I mean, it depends, yeah, but you can take longer if you need longer, you know. So usually we stop after 2 days, you stop in this place that I'll show you here called Angie and have at least 2 days to acclimatize.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Before you do the last stretch to Lawudo. Otherwise, sometimes people get sick anyway. Romy wasn't able to go beyond the 2 days. Hopefully the next time. Oh yeah, no. Steve just had to come down as well. He was with Geshe. I mean, they were even higher up, I think. And because he's been fine with Lawudo so far, but I think they went even higher up and it was too much for him. Maybe they went too fast, you know. Mm-hmm. Purification, yeah, some purification. Yeah, yeah, it just happens. You never know. I mean, it can just happen anytime. Sorry, what's your name again? Kerry, okay. Kerry, yeah. Because how's the retreat going?
It's wonderful.
Oh, good, yeah, yeah. I think there's yoga going on now, yeah?
Yes, and, we did yoga this morning, so I
Yeah.
thought I'd go
Yeah.
to that.
Yeah, yeah.
I like traveling. I've seen the people,
Yeah, have you been to the east at all?
not in that respect,
Yeah.
more Japan.
Oh,
and
Japan, yeah, Asia,
Asia.
Southeast Asia, yeah. I've been to Japan too. Tokyo?
Yes, Tokyo, Kyoto.
Oh, yes, yeah, yeah.
but
It's expensive, Japan, eh?
the thing is marvelous. There's
Oh, was it?
something
Oh, okay, depends. I've not been there for a long time, yeah.
that used to be this last one,
Yeah.
it was remarkable.
Mm. Well, that's good, because usually it's really expensive.
Temples.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah, yeah, not as special. I wasn't Buddhist at the time, so I didn't really appreciate the Buddhist aspect of it. Same with Thailand when I was there. I wasn't really Buddhist at the time, but it would be different going back now, yeah. Mm. Very clean.
And they don't
Everyone perfect, perfect. Everyone's so well organized, perfect. Yeah, yeah.
particularly love you.
Mhm. I'm going to go to the bathroom. It's a good idea, and then we can start. Are you going to come out, Romy, to the Vajrapani event at all on Saturday? Or are you too busy? You are? Okay, great.
I'm not sure if I'll stay with that.
No, that's okay, yeah. Well, we've sort of planned it so people can leave around 5:30, you know, because like most people want to leave, you know. We do have a bit on Saturday, Sunday, but we're not expecting a huge amount of people to run. But I think most people want to leave, you know, so. Mm. Mm-hmm.
Visiting from Portland, so I just need to figure out how I'm getting there. But I think Angie's coming up, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm sure there should be someone, yeah.
Would you like some more tea?
What kind of tea is it?
Lemon ginger?
I'm not lemon. I can't drink it. Sorry, Nancy. I'm good with hot water, but thank you so much. I'm not much of a herbal. Okay,
That sounds great. Thank you
good. I'm glad somebody can have it.
very much.
Okay, we're going to start again. So here we are. Welcome back. I worked out the issue with the battery. So we're not going to unplug all of a sudden. So here we are. Yeah, this is kind of what the hike up looks like. Just lots and lots of holy objects. Blessing, blessing, blessings all the time. So what we do is we take the first 2 days, you stop sort of halfway up one night or a third of the way up. And then the second day is usually the most, in some ways, the most intense because it's called Namche Hill. And the second day, you know, because we were just discussing now with Romy, it's about, from Lukla, you need to get up about another 2,500 meters up. You know, so you can imagine the altitude is, you know, it's definitely a possibility that you're going to have problems with the altitude. So we usually, after 2 days of walking, we usually stop in this place called Namche. And this is a yak. I thought this was a really nice picture. So you bump into yaks on your way up as well. Unfortunately, they're usually carrying a lot of heavy loads. But this is the local sort of bazaar where everybody shops and all the trade happens. And there's a lot of guest houses and coffee shops and everything. So it's quite very comfortable. Cold, but comfortable. And this is, so usually we would spend about 2 days in Namche, just acclimatizing before we do the last trek, about 4-hour trek up to Lawudo. And sometimes people need a bit longer to spend there because it's, yeah, it depends on the individual, you know, but generally if you do a sort of guided trip, I think they do 2 or 3 nights in Namche, just so we feel ready and we don't arrive in Lawudo feeling kind of sick or, you know, having sort of any physical problems. We prepare ourselves, kind of rest ourselves there as much as possible. Let's see here. So when you hike up as well, the other thing you come across is these massive bridges, iron bridges. So they do wobble. I'm going to give you like a little, again, I've got a little video of what you can come across when you meet the bridges. So I'm not good with heights. So I tend to get pretty freaked out with the bridges because they're hundreds of feet high. I mean, who knows on those regions, I don't know how they build them. It's unbelievable. You know, the engineering, you know, for considering they have so little available to them in comparison to the West. So I just wanted to share a little video that, again, Venerable Sarah had posted of what you might come across when you're on the bridges. Get this out the way. Not that one. Let me find it. Here we go. So these, you know, because, you know, when you get to Lukla, and everything needs to be carried up for there, you know, so actually things get more expensive once you get into the mountains because, you know, it has to be all of food, so much food. I mean, of course, they can grow some basic things like potatoes, some vegetables, even in Lawudo. No, Rinpoche's sister grows vegetables, but it's, you know, everything has to be carried and it's carried by men, but it's also carried by donkeys and yaks. And so I may always make sure when we reach these bridges, because to get from Lukla to Lawudo, you have to cross around 5 of these metal bridges. I think I've got it counted now, so I prepare my mind each time, because some of them are not so high, but some of them are literally hundreds of feet high, and you're just kind of relying on this, this bridge, you know, and of course, they have to be strong because look how many donkeys are on there and their loads are probably, I don't know, 100 pounds each at least on their backs. So they're super strong anyway, but you know, if you've got a problem with heights, it doesn't matter. Logically, that doesn't work for you, you know. But either way, you just do some mantras as everybody does. And so there's about 5 bridges on the process up to Lawudo you have to cross. And you make sure you don't want to get on them when you see there's a load of donkeys coming in the other direction. But yeah, we can see many animals, you know, so it's a hard life up there, you know, the animals. And again, porters. So let's share screen. Oh, that's still going. Wait a minute. That's it now. Yeah. It's a lot of logistics here. Okay, from current slide. Sorry about the back. So bridges. So the other thing is, you know, of course, we rent porters to take our things up, but they also carry. There's one porter, when I was coming down the last time, one porter we were told could carry 120 kgs. It's like, in pounds, that's like 250 pounds or something, you know. But generally, I mean, we don't give them that amount. We give them our backpack. We're allowed about 15 kgs on the flight for Lukla. You can bring more. You have to pay for extra luggage. But, you know, you want to try and keep it to about 15, 18 kgs with your own luggage. But this is actually two porters carrying up a statue that's now situated in Lawudo Gompa. And they're carrying, you know, well over 60 kgs each year. So, you know, you come across, like, you know, on the track, you come across holy objects, you come across animals, and you come across lots of porters. So that's some of the things you can expect on your way up, you know. So generally, there's a couple of ways to approach it when you come. So we've arrived in Namche, which is the main bazaar. You spend about 2 or 3 nights there to acclimatise. You can either go up to Lawudo, which is about a 4-hour walk, depending on how fit you are. If it's your first time, you would go slowly, so we take about 3 to 4 hours. Or we can go to Tami. We can do that first. So Tami, as I mentioned at the beginning, that is where Rinpoche was born, where he lived in his previous life as a Lawudo Lama for many years with his family, and then where Rinpoche was reborn this life into Tami. I'm just repeating it because, you know, if you don't hear the names, you know, a dozen times, it's hard for them to stick in the head. Well, that's my case, in my case. So the top picture is an image of the house that Rinpoche was born in before it was renovated. It was renovated around 2020-21 because the idea that they were building a new stupa, which I'm going to show next. They were rebuilding a stupa. And so the idea was that the locals had invited Rinpoche to come up to Tami. So Rinpoche was going to come up and spend a night in Tami. So they decided to renovate the house because it was no longer, you know, you weren't able to sleep in the house as it was originally. We couldn't offer that to Rinpoche. So, you know, people had different, you know, opinions about that, whether we should keep it in its natural state so you could get the flavour of how Rinpoche lived, or to renovate it. But anyway, the decision was made to renovate it so Rinpoche could, the idea was Rinpoche was going to stay there. So this is it in its renovated shape, you know. And, oh, this is a picture of me the first time I went to Lawudo in 2017 when it was still in its original form inside the house. So you get an idea. This is a very typical sort of more traditional Sherpa house. And again, I think really when Rinpoche's family were alive, it wouldn't have been much different because they were very poor. So they wouldn't have had a lot of things in there. This is the lady, the sort of keeper of the Lawudo. We had to get a key from her to be able to go inside. And you can still visit her when you go to Tami. She was there this time again when I went there. She allowed us to be in. So this is the top part of the house. And then underneath, typically the animals lived. And they would help to keep some warmth in the house as well. So yeah, it gives you an idea. Everybody slept around the stove. That was the warmest part of the house. All the children. And Rinpoche talks about sleeping under his father's fur. You know, all the kids had to sleep under the fur jacket his father after he passed. You know, that's the blanket they had, you know. So it was very, very, very simple. So you can, you know, when you go to Tami, what you can visit is Rinpoche's house, you know, where he was born. And you're able to go in and see that now. As I say, that's all been renovated. And then during the earthquake in 2015, one of the main stupa in Tami, there's 2 or 3 other stupas, but the main one was kind of destroyed pretty much destroyed during the earthquake. So the locals asked Rinpoche to help rebuild the stupa. So Rinpoche, I guess, checked and decided to build it in the form of Bodha stupa. I don't think the original one was this style of stupa. I'm not 100% sure though. So anyway, this is what Bodhanath stupa looks like, and it was rebuilt in this form, and Rinpoche commissioned and paid for and organised the rebuilding of the stupa. So you can also see this incredible, beautiful new stupa that was built in Tami. So Tami itself, you would spend a night here just to go right. Oh, sorry. What did I do? Back. Where is mine? Sorry. Let's go back. I'm going a little bit too far ahead here. So this is a stupa. So we would spend a night in Tami, seeing Rinpoche's birth house, going and circumambulating the stupa. So even in this stupa, there is a prayer wheel. So you can go inside the stupa and turn a prayer wheel. Here is this is also next to Rinpoche's birth house. There's a prayer wheel. This was commissioned by Rinpoche's sister. For many years, she wanted to build a prayer wheel to commemorate her family, her mother and father, and also for Rinpoche. So this was constructed just before Rinpoche passed. It has 100 trillion mantras with microfiche inside. So you can also visit that and circumambulate the prayer wheel that Rinpoche's sister built. And this is Venerable Roger. You can see inside that house there that you can see the prayer wheel. So you didn't get here either, no. So you can also visit the prayer wheel. This is Venerable Roger. He came up in November and, you know, visited Tami and visited Rinpoche's new house that was built for Rinpoche, and he visited the prayer wheel, and he also visited, this is Tami Gompa. So as it says here, gives a little bit story about Tami Gompa, Tami Monastery. It's one of the oldest monasteries in the Kathmandu Valley. And it was built and founded by this great master, Lama Ropa Dorje. As you can see, he was able to twist an iron rod with his bare hand. That was one of his, I mean, it's just a side effect of their accomplishments. It's not the main purpose, but by the way, that's what they can do. They have so much power. So this monastery is still here. And one of our nuns, Jamyang Wongmo, actually the nun who wrote the Lawudo Lama, she lived in a hermitage, which was here on this land, just actually even further up from the Tami Gompa. She has a little house there, a retreat house. So she's very tough as well, very strong, you know, because it's very cold there in the winter time. I don't know what kind of heat source she has. So she doesn't live there anymore, but she lived there for many years up in a retreat house here doing retreats. And so you can also visit this Gompa. It's about a 20 minutes walk up from Tami itself. And this is also the place where Rinpoche initially went when he was very young and his mother first sent him to study with his uncle. This was the first place that he was sent to, Tami Gompa, and it was just up the hill from his house, about a 20-25 minute walk. But of course, as I mentioned before, Rinpoche was so young, he missed his mother, so he kept running home. And his poor mother was kind of exhausted having to take him back up again, as well as doing all the other chores and activities she had to do in the day. Rinpoche tells a story one day he ran away. And basically, as you saw in one of the original pictures, when Rinpoche was so young, his clothing was just like one piece of cloth. So Rinpoche used to tell the story when he was really young. He'd run away for the monastery down to his mother's. By the time he got home, he had like caca all in his pants, you know. So can you imagine his mother's been in the field all day. Then her son's like ran back home again. She has to clean him. He's only got one clothing. You know, you have to clean him, do all that, and then take him back up to the monastery, you know. So anyway, this is Rinpoche telling stories and expressing the kindness of his mother. You know, from Rinpoche's side, it wasn't that his mother got rid of him. His mother, she had to borrow money and everything to sort of try and support his early day education. So it was very, very tough. Very, very tough life, yeah. So yeah, so there's many things in Tami itself you can visit. You know, I say that's an overnight stay, and there's a nice, one of Rinpoche's extended family members owns a guest house there called the Yak Guest House. So you can also have a nice comfortable stay in the Yak Guest House before you move to Lawudo, which is a little bit more austere. It's okay, but it's definitely more simple. So then we arrive in Lawudo. So from Tami, there's another big iron bridge that you have to come across. And then you get to Lawudo and you meet Rinpoche's sister. She's now in her 80s. She's the heart of Lawudo, the keeper of Lawudo. And you'll see her. Lawudo's a bit like a sort of farm retreat place, farm type retreat place, because there's cows. And Rinpoche's my sister, she milks the cows every morning and I think at least in the morning, if not twice a day. And, you know, she takes care of the cows. She has a vegetable garden, so we can enjoy vegetables up there now. You know, that was just in the last, I think, 8 to 10 years, I developed this vegetable garden. It's not all year round, but we had sabji. Sabji is like a vegetable dish in Nepal. You know, we had that every day. I was up there for 6 weeks and we always had some kind of vegetable. So she takes care of the vegetables, and she also tells lots of stories about the early days in Lawudo, about taking care of the young monks who were always pee-peeing in the middle of the night, and she had to get up, and she's like, so difficult, so difficult. So hard, no money, so hard, so difficult. But she also makes you laugh, you know. She's got a great laugh. So she's very precious, you know. So actually, if you can get to Lawudo sooner rather than later, it would be good, because Rinpoche's sister's already in her 80s, so we don't know how long she's going to be there. And it's very precious to be able to go there when she's still alive. This is, again, she's always working. She's always got her apron on, constantly working. She always says, no, me no prayers, me no meditation, me just working, milk the cow, me no nothing. Very humble. So this is the Gompa that Rinpoche built in the 70s. Again, Rinpoche was mostly meditating, so the workers kind of did what they want. Rinpoche used to tell that story of how most people who were managing a project would be like, you know, yelling at the workers and telling them to get up, but Rinpoche was too busy meditating, so he wasn't really paying attention. And it wasn't his style to kind of come and crack the whip, you know. So it did eventually get built, but I think it took longer than maybe normal. So anyway, this is the beautiful Gompa that's here that you'll see. And this is also a view. You can see the views are absolutely stunning for the main temple. And this is like in the middle of October, you know, so it's pure blue skies, right over, everything overlooking the Himalayas. So I'm just giving you a wee guided tour. This is the last time that Rinpoche was in Lawudo. Again, it's not a high resolution picture, but I thought it was really sweet. Rinpoche going around, and again, I think the last time Rinpoche was there was actually some snow. I guess sometimes it doesn't lie for long if there's a bit of sun and it's a light snow. Anyway, this is Rinpoche blessing the cows, as Rinpoche would do with his sister. And so one of the things that Rinpoche said to do to Rinpoche's sister every day, to walk or circumambulate the cows and the calves around the Gompa. They have to do that every day. So you can see that main temple that we just saw the picture of. Every day they try to walk the cows and the calves around the Gompa. And this is Rinpoche's sister requesting Nawa Nendak. Again, that's a name I always find difficult, but I've got it up there. So Nawa Nendak is actually Rinpoche's childhood playmate. He's still alive. He lives in Tame. He must be in his late 70s now. And he comes once a month. Rinpoche requested him once a month to come and do a special puja there at Lawudo. And also here, along with doing the puja, makes these incredibly beautiful offerings and, you know, performs this puja for, I think, for the benefit of Lawudo. And also Rinpoche's sister sometimes requests him to do other pujas. And here he's doing a special blessing for the cows. He's doing a puja for the cows. So it's very sweet. It's very much in Rinpoche's style, everything, you know. And this is Rinpoche's sister. I don't know what she's doing there. I think picking out the potatoes, or she's always doing something. It's like she's never not doing something. I mean, the only time she's not is when it's breakfast time. She'll have a breakfast, lunchtime, dinner time. And then even after dinner, she's reciting the Pecha. There's a Pecha or text, this Tibetan text. It's the Lawudo Lama's Vajrakutter Sutra that she has. So she reads that in the evening by the fire. But even during the day, it's like she'll be sitting in, it's like, oh, she's sitting in the sun, but she's still sewing, or she's always doing something, you know, always working. So this is the keeper of the Lawudo Lama hat, the lotus hat, that you saw in the, I don't remember if you in the statue in the beginning, there was the Lawudo Lama was wearing a lotus hat. So this is actually the original lotus hat of the Lawudo Lama, and it's being kept at the moment by Nawan Nendrak. I think he wants to keep it. He doesn't want to let it go. But it's kind of starting to fall apart. So hopefully at some point it might get kept and preserved in something where it doesn't fall apart. But this is one of the sort of relics we do have of the Lawudo Lama, his lotus hat. So we all got to see the lotus hat when we were there. So another relic almost of Lawudo, who's still alive, is Rinpoche's uncle. He's 99. He lives in a very simple room, one of the retreat rooms that we all use, you know, when we're there. He lives in one of those, and all the Westerners just live beside him, people coming and going. Very small room. He's 99, very skinny. There's times when they think, oh, he's going to pass away now, and then he comes back to life. He's out doing his laundry again or something like that. Last year they thought for sure he's going to die. He was hardly eating anything. And they thought, okay, this is it. And then the next day he's out in the sun, like washing some of his socks or something like that. They're like, okay, he's good. So he just, all day he does mantra. Doesn't stop. So I've slept in the room next to him a couple of times, and you hear at 4 in the morning, literally 4:30, through the wall. And then he'll have periods in the day when he comes out and sits in the sun. Because even now it's difficult for him. The place he lives is right sort of the lower part of Lawudo. I mean, Lawudo itself's not that big, you know, and he lives, there's some lower retreat huts and higher retreat huts, and he lives in the lower ones. And then he comes out, and then to get up to the dining room, you have to walk up some stairs. So he doesn't even, the last time I was there 6 years ago, he was coming up to the dining room, but now it's too much for him. So he's down there in this very simple, it must be incredibly cold in the wintertime. We have to bring up we have to bring up hot water bottles. Every time, if you ever go, bring really good hot water bottles. That's a nice offering, because he goes through a lot of hot water bottles. I mean, they all need them. But he needs about 3 hot water bottles in the winter just to keep warm, you know, it's so cold.
Ones that they use for the.
No, just ones that you put in your bed, you know, like I think you maybe, yeah, hot water bottle. And the other thing that's really helpful is thermoses as well, you know, that's the 2 things that they really need if you're ever going up there. We took some of each the last time. So anyway, his uncle stays there, so and I mean, he helped to build the Gompa. He was very central in the development of Lawudo itself, you know. So he took care of his aging mother who was blind. They lived in a very, very small, like cave type hermitage close to Sherlock Lama's place for many years. And while he was caring for his mother who was blind and cooking for her, he did his Nundros prostration. I mean, it's mind blowing, you know. So yeah, that's just what they did, you know. A lot of hardship. So he must be incredibly strong, you know. He's still living at 99. So anyway, so you'll meet Uncle, and I don't know how much he sees now, you know, but he does kind of see you. He does somehow acknowledge everybody who's there, so it's very sweet. Yeah. This is the cremation site of the previous Lawudo Lama where they built the stupa. So the stupa fell down during the earthquake. So when I was up in 2017, it was sort of kind of, you know, in a bit of disrepair. So for Rinpoche's, so one of the projects that was going on when I was up there was restoring the stupa, and it got to about this stage when I arrived, and I've got another image when it was finished. But again, these are not easy things to restore. They're right on the edge of the cliff. You can't walk around that stupa. But they had to repair it. So I don't know, it's kind of mind-blowing how they did it, you know, but you're not able, like other stupas, you can't walk around this, you just sit, and there's a nice ledge and you can sit and meditate and do practice, but it's not possible to walk right. I mean, safely. There's not like a kora, you know, that you can walk around. So while I was up there, the projects that were going on was the restoration of this stupa, the Lawudo Lama stupa, cremation site. And this is also just a sweet picture of while they were doing all this restoration during the monsoon. So of course, to repaint the stupa, what's helpful to do so the paint, you don't lose the paint on rainy days, is to add salt. It helps it to dry quicker. So they put salt on the paint of the stupa to make it dry quicker, but the wild goats were coming and licking off the salt. So it was kind of fun. You know, because they wanted the salt for the stupa. So that was what's going on there. So yeah, you also come across some of the other animals you come across up there are wild goats. So this is the Lawudo stupa kind of fin. I think they still had to paint this middle section here, but you can see the view. It's stunning from the Lawudo stupa itself, you know, and this is just on the edge of the retreat center. You have to walk about 5 minutes out of the gate of the retreat center. It's just on the edge of the property. So that's one thing to see. You've got the Gompa, you've got the Lawudo Lama stupa. This is a beautiful picture of outside the cave where Rinpoche and his sister, and they've, you know, really just around a few years after they were given back the Lawudo property, you know, all the possessions by the previous family of the Lawudo Lama. So this is, you can see again, very simple. The cave's pretty simple at this time. Rinpoche and his sister was already up there in the early 70s. She was the one taking care and starting to renovate and rebuild Lawudo. This is the cave now. You know, it's all nicely decorated, and you know, the door's not much nicer on the outside. This room next door is actually a room they built for Rinpoche. This was built recently. So of course Rinpoche stayed in the cave in the earlier use, but because Rinpoche was getting older, they built a room for Rinpoche as well that was a wee bit more comfortable. So this is the room here. And then next door to that, there's a room for Venerable Roger. So this whole building hosts a room for Venerable Roger and Rinpoche, but Rinpoche never got back up there to see you know, that place. So now this place, room of Venerable Rogers is often given to people who want to do sort of longer retreat. Venerable Sarah did her retreat there the last time she was there. And you get a really beautiful morning sun coming in there, because that's the only kind of heat you have in your retreat rooms. What you have is just what comes from the sun. So this is, you can see the views from the cave and everything, just stunning, you know. This is Venerable Sarah enjoying her retreat outside the cave. You can see, so typically in this area, they build the room, the doors, the entry doors are very short. And one of the reasons, of course, Nepali people are smaller, but it's also to keep out spirits and yetis, because they wouldn't be able to get in. So there's a reason behind the kind of short, small doors as well. It's to keep out invading spirits and yetis. So this is inside the cave, which looks really beautiful, you know, but you see up there, you still see the cave. The cave part is still very much there on the top. You still very much feel like you're in a cave. Even the material in the back there, that's just all rock behind. And then even behind the, you know, the gompa's just built in there, but it's all rock behind the gompa as well, behind the altar. Here you have, where my cursor is, these are the three statues that belonged to the Lawudo Lama. So Rinpoche's sister said when they first arrived, these were absolutely black. You couldn't see them because the cave had been abandoned by the Lawudo family for a few years. And so other practitioners were coming and using the cave. And I think someone was doing Nunez, and they were burning a fire in the cave. And there's actually, the only two buildings that were there when they arrived was the cave, and there was a kitchen area. So during the time of the Lawudo Lama, they had stopped burning in the cave because everything just got black. So they built the kitchen so that they could cook in the kitchen. So those were the only two buildings that were sort of there when they took over the cave. But someone had been doing retreat in the cave and burning fires, cooking. And so these statues were completely black. So, I mean, Rinpoche's sister talks about having to literally just scrape very carefully all this black stuff off so she didn't damage the statues. And they were repainted. So this is Guru Rinpoche and his two wisdom mothers. This is also, this stupa here is dedicated for the Lawudo Lama. So there's some relics in there. It does need to be refilled, I think, but there are some relics, I believe, in there of the Lawudo Lama. And then these are just some other statues that were put in there. Oh no, this one here is the statue we saw at the very beginning of the Lawudo Lama. You can't see it clearly there, but that's a Lawudo Lama statue. And then there's some other statues that were added there by Rinpoche, but these are the sort of the remaining ones, you know, the Lawudo Lama. Yeah, that's a point. I can't remember. I'd have to look up the book, you know. I'm not sure when that was made. I don't know if it was just after the Lawudo Lama passed, probably, but I'd have to check that. Yeah, I was just thinking about that now. I didn't have that information. And anyway, yeah, this is Rinpoche's holy bed. And, you know, so you can fit, there's another image here. You can see us sitting in here. This is from the back, and this literally is the back of the cave. So you can fit at a squeeze, maybe 10, 12 people in there. That's squished in. But yeah, this is us doing prayers for Rinpoche's swift return. We would do sort of something in the evening. You get a good bit of light coming in there during the day, so it's quite nice in daytime when the sun's out. You can get some heat in there. But yeah, this is kind of how the cave is, you know. So this is the main sort of treasure up there, is having an opportunity to meditate in the cave. This is a beautiful picture of Rinpoche, one of the last times Rinpoche was in the cave, meditating there. This also, so while I was up there, you know, there was a big preparation going on for Labab Dubchen. And that's when Venerable Roger came up a couple of days before. This was around November 4. So there was a big preparation. They were building a stupa for Rinpoche's swift return. They were renovating the Lawudo Lama stupa that we just saw. They were also, I'll show you another project they were doing in a minute. And then also when Venerable Roger came up, he brought with him the only sort of tooth relic, or I think the only relic of the holy body that they have at Rinpoche outside of the holy body. So a few months or so before Rinpoche manifested passing away, he had some dental work. So they removed a tooth. I don't know if there's any other teeth, but certainly this tooth. Yeah, so there might be more tooth relics actually, but anyway, Romy? Roger's what? Giving?
I think what I heard.
Oh, this tooth? Oh, yeah, so there are a few teeth, yeah. Okay, so there's a few teeth. I thought there must be, yeah, because I know Rinpoche was having different dental work done over the years. So I think these are the only probably the only relics outside the holy body are the teeth relics. There might be more, I don't know, but that's as far as, I mean, of course, if you don't burn the holy body, I don't know what else you would have, you know. There'll be hair, yeah, there'll be some hair and yeah, definitely. So, but anyway, this is a tooth relic. So we had a whole ceremony of bringing, Venerable Roger arrived on a helicopter. So the other way you can get up, of course, if you can't walk, you can come by helicopter and you can get pretty far up in terms of about 20-minute walk from Lawudo by helicopter to a place called Mendi. But, you know, it's a very, very quick change in altitude. So most people wouldn't be able to handle it. It's much better to do it gradually. But if that's the only way you can do it and you feel your health strong enough, you can come up through flight to Lukla and then come up by helicopter to one or two places, and the highest place you can reach is Mendi in terms of getting close to Lawudo. So that's what Venerable Roger did because he was short of time. So he brought the holy tooth relic up for Lama Dubchen. So one of them is placed here at Lawudo. And so here the other project that was going on at that time was the stupa that Rinpoche's sister, I mean, as far as I'm aware, Rinpoche's sister was the first person to commission a swift return stupa for Rinpoche, you know, for a commemoration of Rinpoche. So, and this again was built. This is now, so when we walk up from Namche to Lawudo, I mean, this stupa is basically a 5-minute walk down from the Lawudo Retreat Centre. It's just there, you know. So, and again, it's pretty much built on the edge of the sort of mountain or cliff, but you can circumambulate this. They built a ledge so you can go around. And again, you can just see the view for the valleys, absolutely stunning. And it's built in, as again, this is, I think I mentioned a little bit about, yeah, the meaning and symbolism of the stupa. This stupa it's a type of stupa that was built from a vision of Choshig Rinpoche, and these are more the style of stupas that are built in the Sulukhumbu region, more that style. So she built it, it was completed literally about 2 days before we celebrated Lama Dubchen, and it was built, as I say, in the middle of the monsoon. They had to carve out the rock. I don't know what materials they have, you know, it's not like here, you know, the machinery that they have here. So in very rigorous conditions, but yeah, Nimatashi, you know, oversaw the project. Yeah, all the time. Unbelievable, great enthusiasm and devotion, you know, to construct and finish these holy objects for Rinpoche, you know. So this is the day that we had so on the day of Lama Dubchen, there was 3 things to consecrate. There was the stupa project here. So if after a holy object's built, then it's consecrated. So the Tami monks were invited to do the consecration. The ones from that Gompa that we just saw in Tami. So about, I don't know, 30, 40 Tami monks came to do the consecration of this. So again, you can see how beautiful it is, you know, the surrounding mountainside there. And so here where my cursor is, this is Mendi, that area there. And I say from here to the stupa, it's about a 20-minute walk. And you can actually, as I say, if you really have to, you can commission a helicopter to land in Mendi. There's a landing site right in the corner there in Mendi, and that's where Venerable Roger came up for there. So this is the holy stupa of Rinpoche's. So it's amazing that that's there now, you know, that you can visit when you're in Lawudo. along with, you know, the tooth relics that's there and the gompa that's filled with unbelievable holy objects. This is again just what's happening on the day, the special day, the commemoration, all the monks doing the prayers, consecration. So the other project that was going on at the same time is the painting on the side of this cliff that's about a 45-minute walk up from Lawudo, very steep walk up. And again, you get some idea there. Venerable Tenzin Michael posted some really good videos of what kind of height you're looking at. So this was a project that Rinpoche wanted done for like over 20 years. This is a special rock, White Cliff, Drak Karma. It's a really, you know, large vertical rock face that Rinpoche had wanted for many years. I put an image of Chinrizig done initially. But then in the past few years, Rinpoche's expressed the benefits of this particular Buddha Moga Pasha. So he decided, since the project hadn't been done, so Rinpoche changed the deity to the one that was what he wanted to paint was a Moga Pasha. So these three artists came up from Kathmandu, and they've only ever been tanka painters. It's not like they're used to building you know, holy objects on the side of like 50-foot rock face, you know, I don't know, 100-foot rock faces, you know, they weren't used to. Even one of them came up and he already had like altitude, you know, he got some problem going on with his legs as well, but he did recover after a few days, you know, not as extreme as you did, but they needed a few days because they're not usually living and working up on those altitudes, you know. So anyway, you know, over and above just painting, all this scaffolding had to be carried up to this rock face. Then you can see the scaffolding is, they're just on like little wooden plaques, you know. It's not like it's really professionally done or anything, you know. You get the idea how high up it is. I mean, I just looked at it and I was getting dizzy and like a vertigo or whatever you get, you know. I was like, oh my God, you know. So this took them, I mean, they just worked day and, you know, not night, but they worked all through the day. It took about 3 weeks to finish, you know, they did. And they finished it the day before the consecration. It was unbelievable. So here, yeah, so just getting an idea. Look, it's absolutely stunning. I mean, they did an yeah. Yeah, and you can see it from hundreds and hundreds of miles away. So the idea is people walking up to Lawudo or anywhere, they can see this huge deity from so far away. And, you know, Rinpoche, again, you can see all the benefits that are expressed. So you see it here, you know, the image there. So this was another project that was completed. I'll just keep it here. This was one of the other projects that was completed for Lama Abduchen. So it was the Lawudo Lama renovation of the stupa, the Holy Tooth relic being brought up, the painting of Moga Pasha, and the new Swift Return stupa. There was 4 things that were, you know, done for Lama Abduchen and for, you know, to fulfill Rinpoche's holy wishes. So I can't remember all the benefits off the top of my head, but there are many posters around. There should be somewhere here. Yeah, and it tells you all the benefits just by seeing, you know, it purifies so many karmas. And but Rinpoche we hang them all around the center so that just people even just walk past and they get the benefit of seeing. Yeah. I should remember the benefits, but I know there's all these benefits by seeing. So just to get a wee feel more of the Lawudo, you know, just some of the sort of family aspects of Lawudo. This is the Sherpa kitchen where everything happens, all the food, all the delicious food. And Zango here, she's the cook in the back there. She's been cooking there. Yeah. I mean, this was rebuilt. It used to just be this like unbelievably intense smoky fire pit, you know, that Rinpoche's mother, Rinpoche's sister, cooked there for many, many years in this tiny little kitchen that was just like a smoky, I don't know what. I mean, she's very hardy. I mean, I heard in the past you'd just walk in there and you'd get asthma or whatever, you know, and she was in there for hours. She used to do all the cooking for the Angies, you know, that would come up and the locals who would visit. But then the last 8 to 10 years, Zangmo's been the main cook there in the kitchen, and she does it's a really, really delicious food, you know. Lots of potatoes, momos, dal. So you get 3 very, very hearty meals each day. So this is, this is a sort of feel of the Lawudo kitchen. And sometimes when there's just a few of you there, we get to hang out in the kitchen. But when there's too many people, it gets a bit much for them. They need their space, you know. But you definitely get a little time to hang out with them and get the family feel in the Lawudo kitchen. This is the kind of, this is the dining area where we all usually congregate for meals. And it's just, the kitchen's just right next door. So this is the kind of, you know, family room. And here's the very important fireplace stove that we need to put on at night time, because it's usually cold every night. It gets put on at night, not in the morning, but usually it gets set at night for all of us to sit around and get a bit of heat before we go to bed. This, I don't think he's a director anymore. I just heard he's no longer the director of Lawudo, but he was a director. Geshe Siltrin, he was a director. Anyway, he's here. He was up here for it as well. There's Venerable Siltrim, who spent the last 2 years there. She just left. She's just leaving in the next few days. But anyway, this is just an idea of the sort of family sitting dining room, having some momos. Yeah, it's very nice. Yeah. And then there's some more views, you know, the place. You know, this is just, again, this is a little bit above. Here's the Gompa here, the meditation room. And so the retreat rooms, there's some retreat rooms up on top at the back. These are the ones, I think this is the retreat rooms down where Rinpoche's uncle lives. This is the lower retreat rooms. Again, everything has a great view, all looking out. And then here is the view from the higher retreat rooms that are more on the top of the property. Here. And then just some gorgeous sky photos that I think were mainly taken by Venerable Sarah. Maybe most of these pictures are Venerable Sarah and Venerable Tenzin Michael. But yeah, you just get incredible. One Lama told me these are like banner clouds. You get these incredible cloud formations going on. And this is Mende, as I mentioned before. You can see it from Lawudo, where that helicopter, there's a helicopter pad right there. You can see a little bit of the lines. There's some lines there. It lands right on the edge of Mende there. This is some stunning views of the mountains, and the sun, when the sun sets over the mountains, it's just absolutely beautiful. This isn't actually Lawudo. This is another place that myself and Venerable Sarah visited, a Guru Rinpoche cave, Drak. It's called Drak something as well, but I'm not remembering the name yet. But anyway, I just wanted to share the view with you, because you get all these views from different areas of the Khumbu Valley. But Venerable Sarah and I visited a cave where Guru Rinpoche, there's a rock with his handprint in it. And yeah, so that was quite a trek to get there, but we finally made it. And yeah, you can just see it's like almost mystical, the views for there. It's unbelievable. Some more kind of, I think, start to get in the evening sunset views. Some more views here. Look at those the clouds, you know. That looks like a fish, eh? Some more sunset views. So yeah, so that's kind of it with Lawudo. Just giving you some of the views, some of the ideas. So generally, again, if you go on a pilgrimage, it would take about 4 days, 4 or 5 days to get from Lukla up to maybe 3 days to get to 2 days to get to to Namche, the bazaar. Then from there, I think sometimes you go to Lawudo, but I'd probably go to Tami next, where Rinpoche was born. You would spend a night or 2 there, because you've got all these different, you know, the stupa, you've got Rinpoche's birthhouse, you have the prayer wheel, you have the ancient Tami Gompa. So there's a few things to visit there. And then you would move another 2 hour, you know, it's just a very short morning walk up to, actually, you can also visit a nunnery called Tamo Nunnery. I haven't got this in the slides here because it gets too many, there's so many things. But on the way to Tami, you can also visit, on the way to Lawudo, you could visit a nunnery that was built around probably about 100 years ago. And there's a whole story around that as well. And then moving up to Lawudo, you would get there and have about 5-6 days to spend at Lawudo and just have time to meditate there, do practice around these holy objects of the Lawudo Lama's cremation stupa, the Swift Return stupa that was built for Rinpoche, the Holy Tooth relic, the Gompa, the meditation room, filled with so many holy objects. And what else was there? Oh, the cave. The most special, precious thing that we all go for is to have time to meditate in the cave. So that's kind of the main things that you would visit. There are other places you can visit, like Khumbu and Kyabje, if there's time, and there's just many, many holy objects around those areas as well with their own history. The waterfall prayer wheels are in Namche. So you would see them there. That they're also prayer wheels that were built and commissioned, I think mostly by Rinpoche. They're 4 sets of 4 prayer wheels, and they're stacked one after another, and they just turn with water, through the power of water, and they're just going constantly. So there's 4 of those, 4 or 5 of those situated in Namche. So you would see them on your way up to Namche. Yeah, the one that Venerable Yanchen's just asking a couple of questions about where things are at. You just missed that. That was in the slide, and that was built in Tami. So you would see that in Tami. So there's, I mean, I just, you know, I would run out of time because I could show so many more things, you know, so much more history, but it's a lot. It's already 2 hours, you know. So just to complete, this is, so, you know, this is the nunnery at Copan, and I found this beautiful picture on Facebook one day, this when I had a double rainbow out. So you can see here some of the nuns are in the courtyard here debating, and this is their new their new gompa, and it's absolutely stunning inside. You know, they have an old gompa that you don't see in the picture. These are some of the new accommodations for the nuns. When I went there 20 years ago, it was, you know, they had the main temple, and the accommodations were like super simple, and I would just get sick walking on there with the water, you know. But now it's like everyone's so much more manageable. It doesn't mean that you won't necessarily get sick, but definitely the facilities are like so much more manageable than they were like 20, 30, 40 years ago. So it's also possible now to stay at the nunnery, you know, and be there and experience and go around and see the nuns. And definitely you would go in and see the nunnery, because it's the artwork there was all orchestrated by Rinpoche. So there's wall to wall Buddhas. Did you go to the nunnery? The new one. You've been in the new one. Yeah. So it's, I mean, the artwork's just unbelievable. And this is just, you know, some parts of Rinpoche's, you know, just a feeling of Rinpoche, you know, with the holy objects. No, with the, you know, one part, you know, there's many aspects of Rinpoche's life story, which wasn't really getting into, but one of the things Rinpoche loved to do was write Dharma on cuddly toys, you know. So this is one of Rinpoche's cuddly toys. Give out cuddly toys to all beings with Dharma messages. And this is Rinpoche during COVID time with some of the young monks, and they're all enjoying a cuddly toy with their sort of Dharma teaching on it with Rinpoche. Yeah. And then this is Rinpoche, you know, another aspect of Rinpoche's holy life and activities was also saving animals. This is Rinpoche with Kardula, saving, I think the last time Rinpoche was in Nepal for so many years, I don't know, they must have quadrupled or whatever. I don't know the words beyond that, but the amount of animals that Rinpoche must have saved during that time were a lot. Rinpoche constantly saved goats who were being slaughtered. You know, when Rinpoche would travel down to Boda and go up to Copan, he would always liberate goats on the way up and down who were going to be slaughtered. And there is a sanctuary, that's another place you can visit when you go to Copan. There's an animal sanctuary that's filled with all the animals that Rinpoche predominantly liberated. Some other people have as well, but Rinpoche mostly liberated them for the danger to death and being slaughtered, and they're kept. And they've also built, I think, at least 1 or 2 stupas there where the animals go around, on a regular basis. Yeah, they're taken around these holy objects, So this is Rinpoche and Kardula blessing the goat. And I get, just to finish, you know, it's just like so inspiring to see this is where Rinpoche came from, started, you know, and what Rinpoche became, this like unbelievable master. And coming from, you know, manifesting, coming from complete poverty to, you know, being the kind of sponsor and benefactor outside the enlightened qualities, being a benefactor for countless, you know, projects that we can't even fit in our mind, you know. We can't fit in our mind Rinpoche's activities. Even the ones we can physically see, you still can't fit that in your mind, you know, never mind the ones we can't see. So how fortunate were we? And may we all become like that very soon, you know. And thank you for your time. So that's it. So I hope you all get the opportunity somehow to get a live trip and pilgrimage to Lawudo, you know. But this was a virtual trip. May you be able to get a live trip, because it's very, very, very precious, you know, very, very is. And, you know, you can just sit in the cave, as Venerable Sarah and I would say, and think, you know, this is where the Lawudo Lama prayed for us. So we could have Rinpoche and what Rinpoche did for us, you know. So it's very, very, very precious to be able to do that. So thank you.
Thank you. This was so beautiful. And that last picture with Rinpoche, the resemblance is so powerful in that last picture of him.
Which
You
one was
know,
that, Tenzin
The,
Pallion?
the one, you might still have it up. No, the one of him very young and him very old.
Oh yeah, no, that one, it's still up. Yeah, the very last one.
That's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
wonderful
Yeah, you can
picture.
see there, yeah, no, of course. And look, even
You
in
can
the
see
old one,
it.
you can see Rinpoche's like got this kind of royal presence, you know, he still looks like a prince and covered, you know, in these sort of rags, but there's this sort of princely enlightened master sitting in there, you know.
Yeah, so wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, yeah. Yeah.
Thank
Oh
you,
my
Very
goodness.
precious for all of us, you know, to see these. I mean, all the students at Rinpoche, it's so precious. So I just really pray you all get the opportunity to go. And I mean, of course, Venerable Sarah knows so much more, you know. So if you get an opportunity to go with Venerable Sarah, she knows so much. She spends so much time over there and she knows a huge amount, but I can only fit so much in 2 hours. It could
Oh, it's
go on and
wonderful.
on, you know. I just, you know, so it's mostly about the Lawudo Lama and, you know, the retreat place and how you get up there. But of course, Rinpoche's life story is extensive, and hopefully we will have some kind of biography coming out. I'm sure, at least one, at least one. Oh my gosh, you know. The outer, inner, and secret biography of Rinpoche, maybe. We'll see. Any questions? Oh, yes, yeah. Any questions or thank you? No, okay.
Thank
Okay,
you.
well, thank you so much.
This
It was
was
very
so
precious.
wonderful.
Thank
So
you.
wonderful.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Venerable Angie.
Yeah,
Very
thanks.
lovely. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.